Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing my 10-0 run to get my starting elo in the Open Ultra League with a team built around Sand-Attack Gliscor. Honestly, I wasn't sold on Gliscor in the Great League, it's a little on the frail side, but Sand-Attack Gliscor in the Ultra League is an absolute beast. I use Shadow Feraligatr as the safe switch to lure out any grasses or fighters, and Greninja as a sweeper, and that Sand-Attack Gliscor plus Greninja pairing was just slicing through teams like a hot knife through butter. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at the team in action. Off to a terrible start in the first match, leading Gliscor into Aurorus. I save switch into Feraligatr, and my opponent is going to immediately counter swap with Virizion. Virizion would be an absolute disaster for Greninja to see, so this is a very important Pokemon for me to bait out. I'm going to fire off the Ice Beam, but Virizion is so bulky it can live the Ice Beam and the Shadow Claw and successfully farm me down. However, this is honestly good. I was able to bait out the Virizion. Now I get a nice Sand Attack farm down, and Gliscor does need Aerial Ace this go round because it no longer has Wing Attack, so you will need some flying coverage. I get a ton of energy, and now I'm looking to switch out and send in Greninja. The Aurorus is staying in, and that's a very good sign. I fire off the Hydro Cannon instantly, no baiting here. It's going to connect massive damage onto the Aurorus, and I will be shielding everything. Aurorus baits with the Weather Ball in the back. Opponent has their own Gliscor, and now I do feel that it's time to bait. My opponent saved both shields until the end game. They're going to feel pressured to use them. And if they do, then I should be in a pretty nice spot to start spamming out these Night Slash baits. Here, my game's stuttering quite a bit, unfortunately. I'm going to go for a second bait. That's going to grab the second shield, and now Hydro Cannon is going to absolutely destroy the rest of this Gliscor. Hydro Cannon will pick up the knockout. Back in comes Aurorus, and I get the combo play with the Aerial Ace from the Shadow Gliscor. So we got completely crushed on lead and swap, but we're still able to get the win. Picking up a bad lead in the next match, Gliscor versus Dragonite. I'm going to save switch into Feraligatr, and this is how you deal with a Dragonite lead. You save switch Feraligatr, and you go straight Hydro Cannon. Now the opponent will know this isn't an Ice Beam, so they can no shield it, but Shadow on Shadow, Hydro Cannon does enough damage that you can shield once, Shadow Claw all the way down, and then you've neutralized the Dragonite, which is awesome because flying types are a very big issue for Gliscor now that it's running a ground type fast move. Opponent is going to bring in their own Feraligatr. They're looking for a farm down, but it's not going to happen before my Shadow Feraligatr gets a second Hydro Cannon and is able to get them quite low. In comes Greninja. Opponent, very good charge attack timing there, throwing 4 and the move, and Greninja is a complete wall to Feraligatr, so I'm more than happy to absorb the energy. In the back is Ampharos, and this matchup is so much better now that Gliscor does have access to Sand Attack, as before you had no fast move pressure. But look at these Sand Attacks add up. I'm not even building up to the Earthquake. I want them to no shield this. It's a resisted Aerial Ace, but it's going to do some very valuable damage. My opponent is going to be firing off another Brutal Swing, but this will not KO. I can continue to farm. That forces their energy, and now I can just farm them down with Water Shuriken, so I should just be in a winning position. They're going to switch out into Feraligatr, but I have so much energy loaded on Greninja that this is just a completely one game. Greninja is a Pokemon that I've really liked for quite a while, and the fact that Gliscor is such a perfect core pairing, honestly, I'm very happy because I love any excuse to get to run Greninja. They're going to fire off the Hydro Cannon, but I have the Night Slash. Night Slash is going to KO. Ampharos would need to have a charge attack loaded to win, and they don't have that kind of residual energy. The Water Shuriken registers before the Volt Switch, and that's game over. Bad lead in the next match, Gliscor into Tapu Fini, save switch into the Shadow Feraligatr. Opponent is going to switch out into Shadow Drapion, and Shadow Drapion is by no means an answer to a Shadow Feraligatr that's up energy. Hydro Cannon is going to land massive damage to the opponent. They're going to return fire with the Crunch, and the Crunch gets the drop. I'm going to farm up 4, trying to go for a CMP tie on an Aqua Tail, and I didn't see a Poison Sting sneak. Tell me it's a Cap tie, and it is, and that is massive, because I think I can Sand Attack down here. I'm going to send in the Gliscor, I get the full Sand Attack farm down, and now when they bring the Tapu Fini, I can send in Greninja. And Greninja in a shield advantage situation does actually beat Tapu Fini. They're going to go for the Nature's Madness, of course. I continue to farm up a ton of energy, and I'm now going to unleash the Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon will do a decent amount of damage. In the back is Golurk, and the poor opponent's Golurk just had nowhere to run against this team. I'm at back-to-back Night Slashes. Golurk does survive a Night Slash. However, this should set me up in a pretty nice position of just being able to Sand Attack down with Gliscor. One Shadow Punch does not threaten whatsoever, so I can let this go. I'm hoping that I can farm down before they get a second, but the Golurk is barely able to hang on, but that's still okay. Tapu Fini didn't leave with a move loaded, and I have an Earthquake, and that's pretty comfortably going to be game over for the Tapu Fini. So we've had some pretty rough leads for the Gliscor, and it has not mattered. This team just continues to get results. Shadow Gliscor into Talonflame, another very bad lead. I'm going to throw a couple Sand Attacks and then look to safe switch into the Feraligatr. Opponent is going to respond with Virizion. Virizion does not have to shield this Ice Beam. They can tank it. However, a lot of them do like to shield it, purely based off the fact that if one lands, Feraligatr can potentially double shield and farm down for switch. Even though with this team, that's not something I would ever play for. Instead, I would much rather just go for an energy lead on my Gliscor. They're going to fire off a Leaf Blade. These Sand Attacks are pretty heavily resisted, so they're not going to be doing a whole lot of damage, but Aerial Ace is double super effective. Aerial Ace is going to land. They save Virizion with a move, and Talonflame re-enters the field of play. Talonflame is going to go for the fly. I'm looking to farm up 3 Water Shurikens and going for the Hydro Cannon since a Night Slash will not knock out. My opponent's play is going to be to shield here, try and burn the final shield from the Greninja, and then be able to snipe me with the Virizion. I'm in a position where I can still throw 3 and the move, and the switch clock is very close to up. If the timer's up, I will be able to save the Greninja here. Clock's up, there's the switch and the catch. Leaf Blade will still do a solid amount of damage to the Gliscor, but catching it just puts me in a winning position as it's Registeel in the back, and Registeel is not going to be able to get a lock-on farm down. I get to fire off an Earthquake. That does massive damage. These Sand Attacks shredding through the Registeel. Registeel is forced to throw energy here, and that just means they automatically lose. Even if they can't farm down, they have to try there. And now, I have double Night Slash loaded, so I can win the game. The Virizion's dry though, so I'm going to try and go for a Water Shuriken down. I decided at the last second it's not worth it. I think in hindsight I could have got the Water Shuriken down, but I did want to guarantee the win, as I believe this was one of my 5-0 sets that I do get to claim here. And there it is, the 5-0 set. Alright, we move to the next match. Gliscor into Shadow Feraligatr, so Gliscor not picking up a lot of leads, but the team was still getting quite a lot of wins. Here, I'm going to safe switch into the Feraligatr, and my opponent is going to fire off energy, which is great for me. And I'm able to bank a ton of energy on the Gliscor. Out comes Virizion. Virizion throws right away, and there's no point in me shielding. All I want to do is bait this out, and I was able to successfully do just that. I can farm up a ton with the Gliscor, looking to unleash the Aerial Ace. Aerial Ace will do way too much damage to that Virizion. Virizion, I mean, if they're going to farm that much, I'm going to fire this Aerial Ace. Either force them to give up a shield or lose the energy. They choose to lose the energy. I can farm up a lot with the Gliscor, but unfortunately, my opponent did have slightly more residual energy than I remembered. I thought they were dry, but they did actually have 1 residual, which does make this a little bit more complicated. They should be 1 off, so I'm going to throw 1 Sand Attack, switch, catch, and sneak a free Water Shuriken, and that should put me in a pretty decent position. In the back is going to be, I thought that was going to be another Registeel, but no, it's a Berserker. Berserker, honestly, can run an incredible amount of different moveset combinations, so I'm just going to let this go. The opponent is running Trailblaze that will KO, but I'm still just in a winning position as Gliscor can get to an Earthquake. Earthquake will easily KO Berserker, and now my opponent's only win con is to try and Shadow Claw down with the Feraligatr. Feraligatr can try, but it will not get there. Gliscor able to reach the Aerial Ace, KO this Feraligatr, and take another win. Hopping into the next match, Shadow Gliscor finally sees a good lead, going up against Thunderfang Steelix. They safe switch into Drifblim, and I have an amazing response available as Greninja hits the field of play. I also have Feraligatr, but since Feraligatr doesn't have a Ghost Resist, that is a matchup where Drifblim can make things uncomfortable. But Greninja is going to be the hard counter here. I resist every possible move that they could throw. I get to fire off Night Slash after Night Slash, they actually shield, and I don't have to shield back. In the Great League, if Drifblim lands a Shadow Ball, it can Astonish down. It looks like in the Ultra League, that is not the case. I get to win the CMP tie once again. Night Slash is going to KO, and they lose switch advantage and shield advantage. In comes the Steelix, getting the Thunderfang down. In the back is going to be Feraligatr, and this game is so over. I get to fire off the Aerial Ace. Aerial Ace will do some very nice damage, and now I can just tank one, shield one, farm all the way down, and leave with 2 Hydros, and this is just a completely one game. They're actually running Crunch, and they get a defense drop, so that does complicate things slightly. The good news is it's still going to be a win. The bad news is it's just going to take a little bit more time to do so. Because of them having Crunch and getting a debuff, those 2 factors do alter the trajectory of this endgame slightly, but the good news is not by much. Because this Hydro Cannon should just about burn the switch clock. In comes Gliscor, and there's just no combination of charge moves they have that can beat a Gliscor that is up a shield. They can go for the Psychic Fangs. The Thunder Fangs will do ever so slightly more. I decide to use the final shield here, purely just out of I can't carry over the shield to the next game, but a Psychic Fangs wouldn't have KO'd there regardless. I can unleash the Earthquake. Earthquake, massive damage, 1 sand attack more, and that's going to be a good game. Hopping into the next match, and our nemesis, the Aurorus lead, has returned. The save switch to the Feraligatr. Opponent is going to respond with a Poliwrath. A very good Pokemon to bait out. Greninja would get absolutely crushed here. I get to fire off Hydro Cannon after Hydro Cannon. Opponent, I don't believe has had enough for a Scald, so I'm more than happy to let this Icy Wind go. The opponent actually running Ice Punch. Ice Punch did get a buff this season, so they're opting for the better pacing of Ice Punch, which is a very interesting choice. Hydro Cannon is going to be shielded. I fire off the last second Hydro, hoping this will be able to grab their second shield or KO. They no shield, and they survive with fractional HP. In comes the Gliscor. I do get my sand attack denied there, but they're not at 1 HP, so 1 sand attack wouldn't KO, it would take 2. And now I just trust in Greninja, and it's Drifblim in the back. And we're about to see another Greninja sweep. Gliscor is just an incredibly good core pairing for this Greninja, covering for the stuff that Greninja doesn't want to see. So Greninja can go on an absolute rampage in each and every endgame. Back in comes the Aurorus. Aurorus, honestly, I have no idea where their energy's at, and I don't really care, because this is just a completely one game. I get to fire off the Hydro Cannon. Even if they called a Night Slash bait, it wouldn't be winning for them. They end up committing the shield, and I get to win the CMP tie with Hydro Cannon number 2. And Aurorus, double super effective on the Gliscor. We've seen 2 of those leads, and we've won both of them. Look at the spice in the next match, leading Shadow Gliscor into Kyurem. I don't really see Kyurem outside of the Master League, but respect to the opponent for running something interesting. I'm going to get a couple sand attacks of energy and then safe switch into Feraligatr. Dragon Claw is going to land. They're going to switch out into Tentacruel. And this, I mean, it's a very unorthodox lead, but a Tentacruel behind a dragon makes quite a bit of sense, and baiting this out is great for me. The Tentacruel matchup is another one that's way better now that Gliscor has Sand Attack, because Sand Attack you actually have super effective fast moves, whereas before Gliscor would have to throw from this health range. It couldn't farm down. Look at these Sand Attacks go to work. I'm going to shield up the Scald, go for the full Sand Attack, farm down, Gliscor, you absolute beast. And now they can send back in the Kyurem. I have so much loaded energy, and the threat of an Earthquake here is going to actually make me bait to grab a shield and now full send the Earthquake. Are they really willing to double shield the Kyurem? They are not. Earthquake picks up the KO. In the back is a Shadow Golurk. Shadow Golurk is a Pokemon that I love. It is very strong, but unfortunately this particular team does not give it a lot of breathing room. Now I can just send in Greninja. Opponent realizes there's no way to win, so they're not going to throw their charge moves, and I will get a farm down. Hopping into the final match, leading into Shadow Dragonite, I'm going to save switch into the Shadow Feraligatr. Opponent switches out into Clefable, and to me, this is just a misplay. I definitely think the opponent should have probably stayed in with the Dragonite, as Clefable does not have a great matchup against Feraligatr. However, if they're able to successfully bait, then things do get a lot more uncomfortable. Hydro Cannon is going to land. I'm firing off Hydro Cannon number 2, and this will be grabbing the shield from the opponent. From here, I don't really think I can afford to shield. They should almost always Moonblast here and just knock me out, and I just have to take the farm on Gliscor, but they make a game-losing misplay. They Swift Bait, they switch into the Dragonite, I go for the Hydro Cannon, they shield the Dragonite, as a Hydro Cannon would do quite a bit, and this, I'll be honest, I did put this video at the end because this opponent did make some plays that did confuse me quite a bit throughout the course of it. I'm going to be firing off the Night Slash. Night Slash is going to connect, and I have another Night Slash as well, but I intentionally farmed one over, so I have a bit of residual energy. The Night Slash is going to pick up the knockout. In the back is Wheezing, and this is just a completely one game. Hydro Cannon will do quite a lot of damage, getting that Wheezing pretty close to 50% HP, and now I can just send in the Gliscor, and I live any one move. They are going to go for the Brutal Swing. That's very fine. I can throw right before they get to an Overheat or a Play Rough, but they're just very content going straight Brutal Swing. There's a switch to Clefable, and I'm not going to let Clefable get to a move. Fire off the Aerial Ace. Aerial Ace is going to pick up the knockout here. Back in comes the Wheezing. Wheezing is going to get knocked out courtesy of an Aerial Ace, and we are able to secure the win. So overall, we were able to successfully get our 10-0 start to the Ultra League, and that gives us a starting elo of 2331, one of my highest starting elos ever. So overall, I am thrilled with how today's battles went. All in all, I think that Sand Attack brings back Gliscor in a massive way, and I'm honestly a huge fan. I really like Gliscor as a Pokemon. I've used it quite a bit before in the Ultra League, and it always did feel a little bit awkward going up against electric types. Like Gliscor into Ampharos, if you had an Earthquake shielded, Ampharos actually had the upper hand. But now that it has Sand Attack as its fast move, it has ground fast move pressure, that's no longer the case. It's now way more convincing into a lot of the electric types that you would typically want to cover for, and since you switch out Night Slash for Aerial Ace, you still have nice coverage into the fighters. I do think if the meta shifts to people running something like Ice Punch Primeape or Ice Punch Annihilate, then this team might feel a little less effective, just because obviously the backline doesn't do the greatest into fighters, and Ice Punch would hit for double super effective damage into Gliscor. But for a day one team, it worked amazingly for me. As I mentioned, went 10-0, did not lose a single game. So if you're looking for a good climbing team as you get closer to that starting elo, or if you've got the starting elo and you're looking to begin the climb already, I think this is just a really good team to do so. The team is very well balanced, and I did include a couple tips and tricks along the way, especially for how to play out of that Dragonite lead, that overall I think will be very beneficial. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.